And hello, how are you doing? It's me. I haven't made one of these videos in a little while, so I figured I'd come on and make one. So here I am. How's everybody doing? I'm doing just fine. I've been very busy. I'm studying law. I'm learning in detail about how our court system works and the specifics of the court system in detail, in depth, uh, down to the very essence of why we have court systems in the first place and the roots and origins of our courts, um, which play a very important part in how our society is shaped overall. And indeed, how the world is shaped, really. If we think about how just how much the United States has influenced the rest of the world in terms of our legal system, our constitution, and other ways. It's really astounding to really get into the essence of it and study and figure out just how much of a responsibility we have really towards the rest of the world and how our precedents and legal decisions have an impact for good or bad on not just ourselves and our country, but other parts of the world that look at the United States as a source of precedent in terms of how should we decide things, how does the United States decide things. Many countries around the world will tend towards looking at a United States precedent in terms of how their laws and courts operate. Hello, Shadow Striker. Welcome to the chat. You're saying Ford is offering Bible flags and guns with the purchase of a new vehicle. Well, how about that? I find that interesting. I like the Bible. I read the Bible regularly, actually. Um, and I think it is important that we protect our Second Amendment because it is still under threat, and it will likely always be under threat until the foreseeable future. I can promise you, though, that the Second Amendment will never be under threat if I am president of the United States. In fact, I will encourage each and every American, however possible, to um, embrace their Second Amendment rights and their First Amendment rights, which you're talking about the Bible. Um, I think it is absolutely important that each and every American has a good understanding of the Bible. If we choose to believe it, live by it, or not, I think it's important that we at least have an education in said book and understand it because it is important. It's not something that we should be ignorant of. And it is the very reason why previous generations of Americans, despite maybe only reaching the eighth grade, had a better education than our college graduates do because back then the Bible was emphasized as a source of education and learning. now it's disregarded by our educational system, and it's not taught in the home. So we're losing that way, I think. We need to, as a society, get back to our roots. And I understand that many Americans do believe in the Bible, which is a great thing, and have studied it and read it. And whether, we're adhering to it or not, it's still something that people have, a great number of people have respect for and appreciation for, um, myself included. I've been studying the Bible since, I first started reading it when I was probably 8 years old. I picked it up by myself and started reading it. Um, my grandmother had a copy in her uh, in an upstairs bedroom in her house. My grandparents had one, and I would read that. Um, Starting with the book of Ecclesiastes because I wanted to have wisdom, and I saw that as a source of wisdom. And then later on, I started studying in my late teens with a friend who became a minister. And later on, I became a minister myself. So I have a great deal of respect and appreciation for the Bible. I think that it's it, in studying our U.S. history, I think it's probably one of the major reasons why the United States was founded was because we had people who were, shall we say, nonconformists in their belief systems because of their appreciation and study of the scriptures. They couldn't necessarily fit in with any of the churches in America or Europe at the time. So they decided to, formulate a new society that enabled them to have that freedom to practice religion as they saw, not as they were told by religious organizations at the time. Um, I think that's a big part of why we are Americans, and I think many of us don't really understand that, and a lot of us have who maybe come from that tradition have lost sight of it, and I think collectively we need to sort of get back to the roots of that because it is what made us. It is what made the United States of America the greatest country that the world has ever seen, um, without a doubt. And new people in America, new generations of Americans, maybe coming from a nationality or background where the Bible is not as respected historically or appreciated, and don't necessarily have the understanding that that's what our freedom of religion is ultimately all about, in our First Amendment. So, yeah, I would like to certainly help people to have greater understanding of that fact and develop more appreciation for that, because it is very important, probably the most important thing. That's why it's the First Amendment. So, how are things today in Texas, Shadow Striker? How's the weather? I was watching, a little while ago, I was watching some episodes of Beavis and Butthead on YouTube, and it reminded me of Texas. And those guys are funny. But yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say right now. I was just thinking about, I was actually thinking about Hollywood and how Hollywood kind of misrepresents the United States, and we should do more to put more people in there who actually, want to make sure that the movies and media that are coming out of Hollywood that are by and large perceived by the rest of the world as a representation of what America is. We should really try to put more people in there who want to make sure that there's quality stuff coming out of there and accurate representation of what America's actually like. Oh, Family Guy. I grew up with Family Guy. I mean, I I grew up in Massachusetts, right? So I mean, I basically kind of am. I might be Peter Griffin in some ways. Lois, how are you? um, yeah, there are a million Peter Griffins. I think the guy who I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Guy who created Family Guy. Yeah, definitely no Quagmire, but I do know like 1,000 Quagmires. I grew up with people like that. I grew up with Chris. I grew up with uh, 1,000 Peter Griffins, and yeah, they're all over New England. Well, someone's at my door, so I gotta head off. I'll talk to you guys later.